G'day Bomber fans, some really shocking news on the injury front this week for the club. We have a long-term injury to a young, luckless defender. We have an all-Australian midfielder in his recovery that's been set back a few weeks. We have one of our best defenders that now has a hamstring issue that's going to see him miss a pretty important game for the club, so it's not good news for Essendon. The injury list is starting to grow. It's been alright in 2024. It hasn't been a major issue like in recent seasons, but we now have 6 or 7 or even 8 best 22 players that are either missing our next game or labelled as a test for it. So let's get into it. Here is an Essendon injury update. Starting with Jaiden Hunter, the latest update with him is a pretty heartwarming one. A few weeks back, he went for his first run on his new, well, not his new knee, but his newly reconstructed knee. It's a great step towards his recovery, but it also shows just how far away he actually is from a full recovery. This is unfortunately a sign that he is still quite a few months away from being able to do serious work on it. It's going to take him a little while to even start running while changing directions, you'd think. He's out for the season. He won't play any VFL this year either. It's good news for him, but not really anything of change for the regular season. Next up is the real heartbreak of the year. Reid, just weeks after returning from his hamstring strain in round 1, playing good footy in the VFL, probably likely to return to the senior team soon, you'd think. Well, not anymore because he's torn his pectoral muscle right off the bone, apparently. This is just terrible luck. Reid does have a bad body, but he has worked so hard on getting back to the senior team fit and healthy, and from nothing but luck, he injures himself while attempting to tackle. It's not an area of his body he's had issues with in the past, which is rough, and it's a bad tear as well. It's going to require surgery, which is probably going to keep him out for a while. Recoveries from a surgery for this particular injury keep you out for roughly 3 months, apparently, which is in line with the end of the season. So although the club hasn't ruled him out yet or put a time frame on his return, it's likely that he won't feature again for 2024. There are plenty now who are wondering whether Reid is built for AFL footy or not. I've seen a lot of discussion about it online. I don't know, it's tough to say, but I will say that this particular injury has nothing to do with preparation or history or his body. It's just really unlucky. So hopefully he comes back stronger and healthier from this one. He will likely have a slow and methodical recovery for pre-season next year. Some more really bad news for the club, just when it couldn't get much worse, but Darcy Parish has had a setback just as he started getting into running again. It's now put an extra fortnight on top of his recovery, so we were initially hoping to see him not too long after the bye in a week, but now it's looking more like he will miss our important stretch of games against Geelong, Collingwood and Melbourne. So that's huge for our season, but we are seeing how much we are struggling without him in this side, which just makes this injury all the more annoying. And that calf awareness, that's what it originally was. Its calf awareness has turned into a 7 or 8 week strain overall. So the club's listed the return date as 5 to 6 weeks away, which is a really annoying setback that could hurt our on-field performance a lot. It's a bad news week for the Bombers. Sam Draper, he is still set to return a week or two after the bye, maybe a bit longer because of his regular injury occurrences. We'll see. It's his knee this time. If you weren't aware, he was playing sore on it for a few weeks, it seemed. That seems to be the issue a lot of the time with Draper. He doesn't get these regular muscle strains or specified injuries that rule you out straight away. He gets a lot of these pain-related ones where he can physically play but is hurt while doing so. So the hope is that he comes back whenever he does and can actually play out the season without any more pain, because his availability is really starting to hurt us now. He hasn't had a long stretch of games in a while. He's been doing quite a lot of work at training recently, and from the vision I've seen, he is moving pretty well, but I trust the club won't rush him back. Kaine Baldwin, there hasn't been much news around him in a while, which is good news with a long-term injury. No news is good news. He obviously had that stress reaction in his foot. It was coming just as he was putting together a really strong pre-season after a good finish to the year last year as well. So he's scheduled to be in main training, or he is in main training now actually, which means he's hopefully going to be okay to play in our VFL match after the bye, unless we decide not to rush him back because he's been on rehab for a while, and hopefully from there he can build some fitness to push for the first team, because he's in a contract year, and being gameless in a contract year is never a good sign. Xavier Duursma, this is a guy we have been missing lately. So he injured his quad at training a few weeks back. It was a really interesting one because he went for a kick and actually strained his non-kicking leg, which is not usually how it happens with a quad. He's scheduled to return after the bye along with Kaine Baldwin and the next few guys I'll be talking about. But of the players to return in the next couple of weeks, I think Duursma is just about the most important for our shape as a team. We need help on the wings right now, so Duursma should be back after the bye. Some more bad news for you guys. Redman will not play against Carlton. He's been ruled out. He pulled up sore from the Gold Coast game, and scans have revealed a very small strain. It's a low-grade strain, so he'll probably be back in action after the bye. That's what the club says. But it does mean he will miss a very important game against Carlton, which is just never what you want. So it's not horrible news, but it just piles on. Further pain for the club this week. Probably the worst week of injury news we've had this year, I reckon. Ben Hobbs is still recovering from his calf injury. He is scheduled to return to action after the bye, so that would hopefully mean he is, from this point on, only unavailable for our match against Carlton. But I do think he will return through the VFL just because he is younger and we don't want to be rushing him back unnecessarily. So I reckon he recovers, gets a week or two in the VFL, AFL and then is in line for AFL selection if his form warrants it. Todd Goldstein is set to be available for our match against Carlton on the weekend. He is labelled a test because he rolled his ankle early against the Tigers and was pretty sore on it throughout the week at training. He didn't attend the captain's run against Gold Coast and then was eventually ruled out in place of Nick Bryan. He has now had a week to rest on it and ease the pain, and it's looking like he's going to be back in the AFL side. He's got through the week, participated in main training, which is always the test. He was named in the squad against the Blues, so he should be playing. Whether it's him on his own or alongside Nick Bryan is hard to tell. I'm going to guess he replaces Bryan, though. That's my gut feeling. And finally, Kyle Langford. He was subbed out of the Gold Coast game because of a hip injury. I saw some speculating on a strain, but it is, in fact, a corky, which is terrific news. That's just a deep muscle bruise, really. You wouldn't really miss games from them usually, which shows the severity of this one for him to be subbed out. But Langford will be very sore throughout the week. He has been very sore throughout the week. But if he feels up to it by main training, he will be all right to play against the Blues. He did participate in main training. It's how he feels in the next few days. There isn't really a risk of aggravation or a timeline extension on an injury like this. It's more about whether he's feeling mobile and pain-free enough to play. He is named in the extended squad of 26, which is good, but I think that was always going to be the case, I reckon. If he was going to miss this game, it would be something that's decided after the initial squad is released, because our game is 3 days after that. But Scott has come out in the presser and said that he should be playing, so expect to see him line up. So let's just do a little sum up of what we have on the injury list from short-term to long-term. Goldie and Langford are both probably going to play against Carlton this week. The 26-man squad was announced and they are both listed on it, but obviously a chance to be taken out for another option if they are not up to it. Redman, Hobbs, Duursma and Baldwin will all be available after the bye, but not all will be rushed back into the AFL side. I reckon Redman will come straight back in because his injury is such a small one. Duursma and Hobbs are in a similar boat, but Baldwin will take some time to recover. Draper is a fortnight away, longer away than that bunch of post-bye options, and Darcy Parish is unfortunately probably another 2 weeks away from that. From there, it's to the guys we probably won't see at all for the rest of the year. Reid is labelled as TBC, but I'm going to assume he is out for the season, and Jaiden Hunter has been listed as unavailable for the year from preseason training. But that is that. That is an unfortunate Essendon injury update. There's not much good news to talk about, unfortunately, today. Hopefully, the next time I do this video, it's a lot more, although I usually only do this after noteworthy news, so I guess the real hope is that I never have to record another injury update again. That's all for now. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.